To order. Janelle, please note that all 7 board members are in attendance. Please, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, wrapping up those 2 items. All right, who's going to kick it off with oath of office for the 2 new elected board members? So I'll just start off with a little word, a welcome, and then I'll have you guys stand and then recite the oath itself. So it is an honor to be elected to guide the education of our community's children. As you recite the oath of office, you assume a tremendous responsibility, along with other members of the school board, for an equitable and quality education for every student in the New Prague Area School District. In carrying out this responsibility, you are asked to fulfill the roles of vision, accountability, and advocacy. In providing vision, the board formulates the educational goals and sets the course of New Prague Area schools. As a board, we are accountable to the community, and we must ensure a continuous assessment of student achievement and all conditions affecting the education of our students. As board members, we also serve as key advocates on behalf of every student and our community. We must strive together with the superintendent and staff to lead the district toward fulfilling our vision, to be a premier school district that models excellence and prepares students for life's opportunities. Having earlier signed the oath of office, you'll now publicly affirm your commitment by acknowledging the following. So if you just want to stand and raise your right hand and then repeat after me. I swear that I will support
I swear that I will support
the Constitution of the United States of America and the state of Minnesota,
the Constitution of the United States of America and the state of Minnesota,
and that I will fully discharge faithfully the duties
that I will fully discharge faithfully the duties
of the office of school board member
of the office of school board member
of Independent School District 721
of Independent School District number 721
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Sounds good. All right, now, can I get a motion for the approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
It's been first and seconded. Any discussion? None? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, motion carries 7-0. All right, we'll now move into the organization of the board. We have a lot of items to go through. The first item is the election of officers. So what we'll do is we're going to be electing a chair, a vice chair, a clerk, and a treasurer. So what I'll do is, I know we do this one time a year, and I've been briefed on the how to do it. I'll open up nominations for each of these positions. Anybody can nominate someone, and then I'll call 3 more times after that, and then request. And if there isn't any more, I'll close them up, and then from there, if there's only one person nominated, I can just declare that person that role. If there's multiple people nominated for a certain position, then we need to we'll do a roll call. I'll ask Denny to do a roll call vote. So
Nominations need a second?
they do not need a second based upon my briefing of this situation. So all right. So that being said, nominations are now in order for the office of chair.
I nominate Matt Goldaddy.
Matt Goldaddy has been nominated. Are there any other nominations for the office of chair? Are there any further nominations for the office of chair? Are there any further nominations for the office of chair? Hearing none, no further nominations for chair. The chair has been closed. Being that Matt Goldaddy was the only candidate nominated for chair, I hereby declare him elected by acclamation. Okay, that's chair. Thanks, guys. All right, now opening it up for I'm now going to be seeking nominations for vice chair. I will nominate Mark Bartuszczyk. Mark Bartuszczyk has been nominated. Are there any other nominations for the office of vice chair? Are there any further nominations for the office of vice chair? Are there any further nominations for the office of vice chair? Hearing no other nominations for vice chair, the nominations of the office of vice chair are closed. Being that Mark was the only person nominated for vice chair, I hereby declare him elected by acclamation. All right. I am now going to be opening up nominations for the office of clerk, for the position of clerk.
I nominate Denny Havlicek.
Danny Havlicek has been nominated for the position of clerk. Are there any other nominations for this position? Are there any further nominations for the office of clerk? Are there any further nominations for the office of clerk? Hearing no other nominations for the office of clerk, I declare Denny Havlicek as he was the only person nominated, and I declare him elected by acclamation. All right. Nominations are now in order for the office of treasurer.
I nominate Kim Holden.
Kim Holden has been nominated. Are there any other nominations for the office of treasurer? Are there any further nominations for the office of treasurer? Are there any further nominations for the office of treasurer? If there are no further nominations, nominations for the office of treasurer are closed. Being that Kim Holden was the only candidate nominated for treasurer, I hereby declare her the elected by acclamation. All right. Election of officers is complete for the next year. Now we'll be discussing the calendar, and then also we'll need to do a resolution determining Columbus Day is not a holiday, a legal holiday, because of one of our meetings actually lands on that second Tuesday or second Monday of is it October or is it, yeah?
September. Or October.
October.
You're right. It's
Okay.
October.
Okay,
Are the kids in school that day?
yes, yeah.
The school day.
Any discussion or do we have a motion to approve the current calendar as printed?
So moved.
Second.
It's been first and seconded. Any further discussion? None. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. All right, the next item on the list here is basically designating our office, our official depositories. So we have a list of, I can't remember, is it 6 or 7 different places where we currently hold
You want to do the
cash.
resolution at this time?
Yes, let's do the resolution for the Columbus Day before we get to that one. Yes, let's do that right away.
I'll entertain a motion at this time to consider the resolution determining Columbus Day not considered a legal holiday.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider the following resolution. Be it resolved that pursuant to Minnesota statutes, the School Board of Independent School District 721 has determined that Columbus Day is not a school district holiday for New Prague area schools, District 721. How do you vote on the resolution, Dan?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Dennis? Yes. Item passes 7-0.
Thank you. All right, now we'll consider the designation of official depositories. It looks like there's 7, 8, maybe there's more than that, 12 or 13 of them where we currently have. And no new ones, right, Sandy, at all?
No new ones, and we don't have money in all of these banks.
Okay.
But we just include them, they're in our boundaries, or we have done business with them in the past.
Okay, got it.
If we need to use them.
Right, if we need to use them, they're good to go.
I'll make a motion to approve them as listed.
Second.
All right, it's been motioned and second. Any further discussion on this matter? Hearing none, how do you guys, those who are in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. All right, next on our list is the designation of legal counsel.
I got a question quick.
Yeah.
Before, we approved the meeting dates and times, not the calendar, right?
Oh, yes.
You said calendar, but.
Yes,
it's the
our
actual
calendar for
meeting.
meeting date, yeah,
Okay.
okay. Not the
Okay.
actual calendar, okay. See, thank you. Keep me going. That's,
Talk about the calendar now.
yes.
Yeah, well, we talk about that a lot, so.
Yeah. Calendar of meetings, however we want to call it. All right, so we're going to do the legal counsel. And this one too, Sandy, there was a new one, right?
Yeah, we had a Dorsey Whitney partway through the year last year because they performed bond counsel duties for us because the provider we were using before no longer provide those services. And that was Dorsey and Whitney, and they provided the bond services for us, referendum services for us for our November election.
Okay. All right, do I hear a motion at all for this legal counsel?
So move.
Second.
First and seconded. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. All right. Designation of the official publication forum. It looks like we just have the New Prague Times. So do I get a motion? Do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second.
It's been first and seconded. Any discussion on this? Hearing none. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. All right. Next item on the agenda is to set school board compensation. We have a packet in there of comparable districts. Not sure what people are feeling on this matter, or whether we just want to approve. Do we have to approve anything if we just want to leave it the same, or?
I'll make a motion to leave the compensation as has been the case for the past year.
Okay.
Second.
All right, it's been motioned and first and a second. Any further discussion on this?
On my opinion, I would make a recommendation that we reduce it by 10%. We are going to be asking every department in this district very soon to be reducing and sacrificing. And I think it doesn't add up to big money, but I think it would set a precedence from the start that we are willing to sacrifice ourselves for that.
Any other comments? Not sure. We can make, I can then move to make a vote on the motion to leave it the same. So you're saying?
Would I need to move to make an amended motion?
I
Or-
believe so. You'd have to make a,
So I'd move to amend the pay to be 10% less than listed in the report.
Is there a second?
yeah, is there a second? Yeah, does anybody want to second that? Or do we want to? Okay,
If there is no second, the amendment goes down.
okay. If there is no second, okay, so then I guess I'll make a motion to, or sorry, not a motion, but I'll call for a vote on the initial of motion and second. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
All right, motion carries 6-1. To leave board compensation the way it has been. All right, next item on the agenda is board committee assignments and the review of policy 213, which actually encompasses the committees. And so I brought that, so we didn't need to review the actual committee, but I thought it would be a good idea considering, I think there's some things on our current list. I think everybody has the current list of what's currently out there. And then also you'll see in your packet, I believe, I'm putting together a suggested committee structure to mix things up, to change things up a little bit, just because I think there's been committees that we've been working on or maybe not working on, just that they've been, at one time, these committees used to meet. They might have been different items, but over time, I thought it would be a good time for us to review these and go through them kind of one by one. So my suggested committee structure would be that we would have 4 board committees, and this is just encompasses us board members. So like there's meet and confer, which would just be one person. And I think, Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that has had to meet twice in the last 10 years, because that just arises when there's an issue with employee and things like that. So it's not a very active thing, it's just to have that, but there has to be someone, per the rules, we'd have to have someone signified as that. And then there would be negotiations, which would be 3 individuals, policy review, which would be 2 individuals, and then I'm actually I'm suggesting that we add a legislative, just because with all this stuff happening in the state, just in trying to influence as much as we can to get involved with the state legislature and advocate for our district as being kind of an outstate or an area that we have more equity in our funding. From there, so it's that section, and then also I'm looking at then as a whole. Then our district has current committees that I'm thinking that we should be representatives on. So it'd be one of us on these committees, and then lastly, I'm kind of breaking up in 3 different sections. The last section is representatives for organizations and governing bodies. So, and we'd have one person representing on those as well. So I guess I know we can't do this in one fell swoop, because I think the process is for adjusting a policy. Our current policy has a bunch of standing different committees on there. And so I guess I'm suggesting that we change that policy, so policy 213, just to have the standing committees that the board actually sits on, so those first 4, and then from there, each year we can review committees and add committees as we see fit. So I guess that's what I'm suggesting we do. But I'm open to anybody else's comments or concerns with that, of course.
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
I don't see joint powers on here.
That's the Fitness and
and
Aquatic
Aquatic.
Center.
Okay, so that's the same thing.
But yeah, we
Yep.
should,
Okay.
good point, though. It
That
should be.
actually should be labeled that.
It should
Yeah.
be joint powers.
Okay.
Should
And we
be,
actually
yeah.
need someone on that, because that's I think that's a requirement, so.
Okay. I also don't see wellness.
Yeah, so I think that's a good, I mean, we've had wellness in the past, but how often are they meeting
Well,
and that
we
kind of
haven't
thing?
met in the last 3 years because of COVID.
Yeah.
So there has
That's
been no
ironic.
wellness. I mean, we used to.
So I guess that's my suggestion, is just kind of cleaning up these things, and if all of a sudden these committees become active again,
Yeah.
I'm all for bringing people back and
I don't
doing
even,
those things.
I don't remember anything about wellness
Right.
at
I,
all.
I
I
did
think-
go to meetings for wellness, but not in the last. It's been a while.
Yeah, several of these, what we're calling committees, really just is an organization, like you were saying, that we have a board rep on. So they're really not a committee,
Yeah,
a standing
we
committee.
talked about
Right,
this,
right.
yes.
And so, as far as wellness, that's a district committee that is led by Jen, as well as someone from South Central Service Cooperative, and we just need a rep on that committee.
Kind of like
Okay.
the PACs, the parent advisory committees.
Right, and so I guess I just made a suggestion that we don't, I mean, again, we've been active, I mean, I just want us, here's my suggestion is this. I would like us to lean in on 1 or 2 things that you're really passionate about, instead of spreading us thin across all these different things where maybe we make 1 or 2 meetings a year, or if at all. And so I guess I'm trying to eliminate some of those things and just say, let's keep it to the things that we can actually focus on and spend our time on. And try to make a difference. I guess that's my take on this, which is why I'm looking at the changes.
My observation would be, I like the loose sheet of paper and what you did for restructuring, because it hasn't made sense to me for a couple of years, because there hasn't been that much activity on some of these committees, so,
How often do
I
the
like
PACs,
this.
I'm sorry,
pardon me?
how often do the PACs meet?
They haven't met because of COVID that I know of for,
The elementary schools
Yeah,
do.
elementary's met, middle
but
school and high school.
Middle school and high school. High
It's-
school doesn't even do it at all anymore
middle school
because
doesn't either
the
anymore.
attendance was very low by parents.
Can we combine them and just have one board member to be PAC and go wherever they're needed?
Yeah, as long as they're not on the same
Same
night.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but if they're
That's the
not meeting
problem.
anyway,
Yeah, that would be.
it'd be the elementaries,
Yeah.
it'd be hard.
And CPAC has met on a
Right.
regular basis.
No, there's committees on here that meet regularly.
Which
Yes.
is a special ed.
Yeah,
Parent Advisory Committee.
So, and that's what I have special ed on there is that. So I kind of kept the ones on there that I know that have been consistently meeting and that where we could have some representation on. So,
Okay, early childhood, I'm on an advisory there, and they've started meeting like
Okay.
every other month.
right.
But
And
that's
where
on there.
they're
That's
on
a
here,
community
yeah.
ed district.
No, that's
Or
not.
sorry,
oh,
like
those
community
are-
education,
different.
early childhood.
Community ed is different
Right.
than early childhood,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah,
Yes.
they'd be
So you want to
separate.
split that?
So I guess I was going to try to keep those together again, just because it's kind of falls under the umbrella of
To me, they
community
should
ed.
be together,
Yeah.
I guess. I interpreted it as they were still the
How
same
often does
thing.
community ed meet?
Well, 4 or 5
I'd
times
say
a year.
4 times a year.
Then you
It's
have-
prob-
you
We have one this
dou-
week.
One person
I have the
doing
one this
double
week.
meetings.
Okay.
It's quarterly, I think,
Okay.
Yeah.
isn't it?
So are you suggesting that
Yes.
we
Keep that separate.
separate those two instead of having, so I have a separate one for early, because the next thing I'm going to be asking, if we say, let's do this, then I want to ask for, volunteers to sit on these committees, so.
Right.
So, that's, if we
It's
want to
been
separate
separated
those.
in the past.
Okay,
Yeah.
And they both meet regularly.
How about the special education? Does that meet regularly?
Yep, that's what Denny's on. He
Yeah.
always reports on that.
Okay.
Just the high school and the middle school.
so let's add
These.
early childhood then with one representative.
Yeah,
and
they
strip
are,
that
they
out
are,
of
they are
community
two
ed.
separate things.
Okay.
yeah.
And we have to add wellness too?
Wellness.
No.
You say we
isn't-
needed somebody to sit on
We're not.
wellness,
I would-
Sandy?
There's nothing that's required, I don't think. The only requirement was meet and confer technically, I think.
And it
and
doesn't
policy
sound like
review.
wellness has been a very active committee, so.
Yeah.
I'm-
I would,
And-
if that would kick up again,
Yeah.
then we would, but for right now, my recommendation would be,
Yeah,
Right.
Sometimes through negotiations, committees become more active because in negotiations, they were requested by the body that was, you were negotiating with, but that hasn't happened with the wellness.
Yeah, negotiations typically is done with the full board in closed sessions, but certainly the board could delegate that to the negotiations committee if it's so desired. I have a quick question about the executive committee because we've had that and I don't know if anybody's ever used that committee or what the duties would be. Tim, have you used that committee? So I don't know.
and that's
what-
why that's why, yeah. I
Oh,
took
you
it
don't
off.
have
I
it
took
on your
off.
list.
I took it
Okay,
off. Because,
I don't have that
'cause
list. Okay.
If Mark and I want to meet, I guess we would, I would meet with just like any other separate thing. So I kind of took that piece off.
Okay, sounds
And
good,
then
sorry.
the one thing I did add was, I think we had a budget one before, did we? We did. But I think just with the meeting we're going to be having, the presentation coming up, I think it'd be good to have someone actively involved in that one as well, the budget piece.
One of the key areas that I think we're overlooking is we don't have anybody representing curriculum, and I think we should have somebody sitting on the curriculum
I am
committee.
on the curriculum committee.
And that's the district advisory, sorry. So
So district advisory covers
that's
curriculum?
curriculum. That's curriculum and
World's Best
World's
Workforce.
Best World Workforce. That's what that one is. And we can expand that to call it that. And then, okay, so that's, any other changes to this that we have here?
just
Go ahead.
clarify, are you, for PAC, you're all right? I just want to, middle school and high school don't have PAC. Just make sure everyone's all right with not having a rep for each of the elementaries, PACs.
Yeah, that should be somebody different so that they, is
I'm
that
just-
what you're saying? It should be somebody different?
I'm
or-
just saying, Matt's added some on here. You're going to be stretched pretty thin here. That's why I'm just.
Yeah, so I took off those PACs. and
Okay.
I figured if there's something that we need to get pulled into, we can always reach out to us and we can be part of that, but I got rid of it as a standing
So do we
committee.
need to let those principals know that? Because they look for me each time, but
Will they be at a disadvantage without you there?
no, I don't
I mean,
think
I
so,
would
but
miss you.
sometimes parents have questions, just, like they just have questions when you're there.
Okay.
And it's just more convenient if the board member's there than not, but Dave could probably handle the question too, or reach out if they need to.
Okay.
Okay. Well, it's good to know, because I've never been on the PACs before, like on the committee that actually was a PAC. So that's the thing. So I had never heard a report back or anything like that. So that's why I kind of eliminated some of those, because I didn't know how active or inactive we have been on these
Right.
different committees. So I guess I focused on the ones that I,
Do you guys
I've
hear
heard.
about those?
What?
When they're gonna have those at their individual buildings? Do you guys hear about it?
Yeah, we have a schedule.
Is there a way to get that to us so that if one of us wants to go there and just sit in on
She's-
it?
She's got everything.
Yeah. Okay.
could do that.
I'd go sit in on one just to see what it's
They have
like,
them in
because
the
I've never,
newsletter. Like, they'll send a newsletter on our emails.
But, yeah, we have the schedule for the year, so Janelle can get you that.
yeah, that'd be good, because like, I was for the middle school, I think, and I think I was invited once and something happened, I wasn't there, so. I'd go to one and just see what it's like.
So yeah, I'm fine with not having the PCs in there. If anybody has a strong opinion otherwise, please voice it now.
I would like to keep special ed on
Oh,
there.
yeah.
Yep. So yeah, so this document here is what I'm suggesting, so if you can see it. This is, so,
Except for,
by splitting out early childhood. is
okay,
only-
I
is
just want to
only
make sure,
change,
you're
yeah.
splitting those two,
And then district advisory, adding the wording curriculum on there.
and world's best workforce.
Yes, yep.
And from my perspective, I'm most interested in policy and curriculum.
Okay,
And so those are the committee's assignments that I would prefer.
okay. So,
Matt, do
before-
we need to also change the fitness and aquatic center to joint powers?
yep.
Okay.
I'm on the policy committee and I would prefer to stay on it.
Okay, so let me get there. So if everybody's okay with this, before I go any further, I would need a motion, I believe, or what do we need to do to get this policy 213 updated to have this wording on there? What's the procedure?
I can redline it and
Okay.
email it out to the board, and then you can respond.
Okay,
And then we can bring it for a first reading at the approved and second reading on the consent agenda on February 7th, I think that meeting is.
okay, okay. So it wouldn't be official, next thing, so if whoever was okay with that, making those, I mean, we're gonna have to approve that later, so I guess that's not something we approve right now, because we approve it in 3 weeks, or 3 meetings.
3 meetings, yeah.
Yeah. So then I guess I would be up for then going through the assignments. And so typically, and I'll just explain what we've done typically in the past, it's been based upon someone has that position, and then if they want to keep it, we've always said that person can keep that position, or else they want to give that up and go to the next. So that's been historically how we've done committee assignments, kind of basically like tenure gets you that position ultimately. So I'm just going to go through them, what we've had for last year, and then see if that person wants to keep it. And if they want to keep it, then we'll move to the next one, or else someone can chime in and say they really, object to that. So, so meet and confer. I don't think we did. So that was Tammy and Leo. So obviously we need a new person for that position. And again, this is hopefully it never has to happen, quite honestly. So anybody want to volunteer for that? What?
We're gonna say something?
Well, no, it's not a bad thing. I mean.
It's not, no. Yeah. You're right. It's, I put it in a bad light. So, I mean, so
If it never happens, I'll take it.
Well, it's not,
what happens? I just keep on talking.
it's not a bad thing that it never happens either, though, so I
Okay,
just,
right, yes. Okay. So anybody want to,
Yeah, I'll
that
still
position?
volunteer
That I
for
can't
it.
be
Okay.
on there?
I wouldn't do it.
So Mark and Janelle, you take notes for this stuff, right? Okay.
She's got it.
I can't do this
You
both
can
at the
watch
same
the
time.
video.
You don't want to be secretary too?
So negotiations, again, has historically been the chair, and then after that, is it help us? I want to help me out. Is it been
Sandy,
Yeah, it really can be anybody, but the chair typically is on it.
okay?
chair should be on.
So I would like to take one of those positions. Then after that, is there anybody else that would want to be part of?
I've been on it.
And I was too.
Okay. Are you guys, oh yeah, everybody else has been there. Okay. So that's negotiations. And then policy review. That's been Jean and Kim.
Yep.
All right.
Stay on, yes.
Okay. Both people want to stay on there. Okay. Legislative. So this would be a new committee because this has never been there. I know, Dan, you've mentioned
Yep.
that.
I'd participate in that one.
Okay. Anyone else?
You want to give me a description of that again?
Well, so I think in many districts, it's basically just trying to I mean, I think you're in charge, it would be a committee that you guys come together, both of you, to work to make legislative change or try to
We-
reach out to, go ahead.
Yeah, we'd meet with, for example, Representative Draheim, reach out to him, or any of the people that represent us here in this
Different
district.
now.
And then,
I don't think-
there's a visit at the state capitol too, a day that they designate our district to be there with surrounding districts from this area. So you'd be involved with there and just,
Finding creative ways to be an advocate for the district and trying to reach out to our
and I
representatives.
think this year,
District lobbyist.
Yes, yes.
this year probably more than any other, it's
Yeah.
crucial.
This year's gonna be important because I think obviously there's a $17 billion surplus, so, and trying to figure out how we get funding to us. Karen, if you don't wanna do it, I would do it, but.
I would rather not.
Okay, so then
Thank
Dan,
you.
you and me.
Cool.
Okay. All right, so those are those 4. Community education,
That's
that
me.
was Kim.
Yep,
Okay, so you wanna keep,
I'm good.
okay?
I have a question about
Yep.
the equity. Is that continuing efforts from the task force?
So there's actually a separate equity group that correct?
There's a district committee.
So it would be separate than what the climate task force, it's different than that.
So is
Okay,
this
it's
a new
different now,
committee?
but are we gonna swing it all into the same thing? Because we're gonna continue with the task force as well, right?
Task force ends on Wednesday.
It'll be the last task force meeting.
So this would be part of the equity committee that's currently.
Tony, why don't you come up and clarify things here? This is Tony Boothie, Director of Educational Services.
So is this a new committee?
This would be, it's already exists within the district, based upon my understanding, but this would be adding us to that, to be representative on that on that committee.
I've never.
So Tony, you have a district equity
We have
committee,
a
right?
we have a district equity committee that was created about 3 to 4 years ago.
Yep.
Yes.
And there's
we've
no board
never
member that sits
had-
on
We've
it.
never had a school board member on that.
Correct.
But if that's what you guys are saying today, we would love to have that.
I'd like to volunteer for that.
And we try and meet quarterly, if not more often. It's an unpaid position, so we don't do a lot of meetings, but we are gaining ground. But we would love to have an equity person on that, yes.
Yes, sorry, I should have clarified that, yes, some of these things are new, so.
Okay, yep.
Yeah.
And then the community task force for the current time, at this time, Wednesday will be our last. It'll be our 6th and final meeting. And that is something that, potentially in the future, if ever needed to be brought back at some time, definitely could be. But that will be the last one on Wednesday.
Okay. Karen, you
I volunteer for
volunteer?
equity.
Okay. Yes. Yes, I put that to the bottom, but we can,
Sorry.
you didn't see my notes?
No offense to you.
Let's go to early childhood, because I want to keep Janelle happy, so.
We all do.
So that's been Jean. Do you want to keep that one?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so Jean. All right, so the district advisory committee would be the next one on my list.
What's that again?
That's the curriculum
Curriculum.
and world's
That's
best.
curriculum
Best
and
Workforce.
world's best workforce, and that's currently was a board. I think it was appointed by you, Tim.
It- Yeah, it was, and it was, they meet about, I'd say 4 times a year.
I'd like
So and so what we're suggesting now, we're bringing it back, is that we would take that instead of it being a superintendent appointed position. It would just be one of our committees that we would participate in.
So for total work on curriculum at a committee level, that's only 4 times a year? Or are there other committees in the district that are working on curriculum?
I think it's about 4, wouldn't you say, Jean?
Yeah, that the committee gets together, but I'm sure the teachers and their
Well, yeah.
teams are
Oh, yeah.
talking
No,
about
this-
curriculum
that
all the
doesn't
time.
include just staff. No, that isn't staff
Like
meetings.
Lauren's working on, that's her full-time job, so
Right.
then this would just be the only 4
This
times.
group reviews the world's best workforce document before it's presented to the school board or any new curriculum. That's
And our district has a cycle of curriculum, to look at the curriculum every so many years.
By department,
So-
by grade level.
Yeah, Martin Baller is the
So
administrator in charge.
they do an in-depth look at a curriculum on a regular schedule.
Okay.
Can we send 2 members of the board to that if Gene doesn't want to step off, or?
I'm not against that.
It's fine.
All right, let's change that to 2 people then. 2 people for the district advisory, and that would be Gene and Dan. All right, special education,
We had another one of the equity then, because I'd really like to do that.
sounds fine with me.
With me.
We're adding to our schedule instead of
You just
Well,
can't,
otherwise, there's not. I've only
No,
got my
that-
name down for
well,
one.
you can't
thing.
have, obviously, is more than 3. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and what I would hope then too is that when you guys have these meetings, then we report back to the board, and so we are well of what's going on in these committees.
Put me down for that one also.
Which one?
The district, I'm sorry, the equity committee.
The equity one?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been
Yeah.
on.
But that's
I've
why I
been on
asked
that
before,
community
because
task
I'm
Dennis
open.
and I,
I'm open to.
Dennis and I were both on the task force, so I was kind of thinking it kind of as a continuation,
Yeah.
even though it's different. But
Okay.
all right.
No, it makes sense, I think.
We're all fine with adding positions, right? Okay.
yeah, as long as we don't get 4 people there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't do any more than 3. 3's our max. Okay, special education. That's been Denny. You want to keep that spot? Okay. And then budget. That's been current. That was me. I don't have to do that, so I would open that up to anybody else if anybody else wanted to participate on the budget. You guys gonna make me do it? You gonna make me
Well,
do
you're
it?
the CPA.
All right, I'll do it.
You're the numbers guy.
Okay. That's all of those, right? The district committees?
Yep.
Okay. All right, but I'm not gonna say yes to the next one. So the next one is, Fitness and Aquatic Center Joint Powers. I currently sit on that one. That one I would like to
I can do it.
give up.
Yeah,
Karen?
I've
Okay.
done my time there too.
I didn't dislike it, I just, I had to say no to something, so. Southwest Metro,
I'd like to
Denny?
continue.
All right.
I'll do the high school league.
Okay. And then the last one is a new one. I thought it would be a good idea to add New Prague Area Education Foundation. It's our area foundation. Tony, do you want to say anything about the foundation at all right now, or should we say that for another time? You don't need to. You can stay there. Okay, we save it another time. So basically, they provide grants, and they also do the scholarships for. I thought it'd be a great resource for us to have one of our board members.
We
be
should. Are
be
you
on
saying
that.
go to all their meetings or some of them? Or?
Then,
I think what Tony's looking for, I'm not going to speak for him, but however I do know, is that he would want us to be an active board member, not just a representative. And if no one wants, I've already said I would be that person, but it would be someone who would be an active member of that, because I think there's a huge opportunity for the district to utilize them as not a resource, but just work together to bring what they're doing here more. So I'm up for that one, or else someone else really wants to be.
How often do they meet?
Tony?
Scheduled once a month, however, depending upon the next event. August comes around.
And Tony, you made it clear that this is not just a representative; it's a actual board position on your board.
I would love to have an active member. Thoughts and ideas to the board. I'd be a voting member. That way we have place, so we don't member, but we definitely want them to be an active member.
Okay. What I was saying, yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, I'll do that one.
If you need help, Matt, I'll help.
Okay.
If you,
Like
you know.
as an alternate?
Yes, or whatever.
And I would say, I know in the past we've had alternates listed. I don't know if that's necessary. I think it's just, if you can't make a meeting, if you could have,
Right.
kind of reach out to that one person that maybe,
Yep.
you know, that can kind of fill your role. If you can't make a meeting, because obviously if you can't make a meeting, you can't make a meeting, but, otherwise, yeah, reaching out to someone if you can. All right, that's all of them. So, okay, I think we're done with that. And I don't think we have to need to make any motion or anything like that on that one.
No, we've never,
Need to, okay. All right, next one is the assigning, this is actually assigning Tim to be for the Education, Identity, and Access Management Board. This is a resolution to assign him to be our designee to have access to, help me out. Yes, all the MDE systems. So, you have a resolution?
Do.
Okay.
at this time, I'll entertain a motion to consider the Education Identity Access Management Board resolution that would name Tim as that person.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider the following resolution. The Minnesota Department of Education, Professional Education Licensing Standards Board, and Office of Higher Education require annual designation of an identified official with the authority for each local educational agency that uses the Education Identity and Access Management System. That person is responsible for authorizing, reviewing, and recertifying user access for their local educational agency in accordance with the State of Minnesota Enterprise Identity and Access Management Standard, which states that all user access rights to Minnesota state systems must be reviewed and recertified at least annually. The the agency will authorize user access to the State of Minnesota Education Secure Systems in accordance with the user's assigned job duties and will revoke that user's access when it is no longer needed to perform their job duties. It is strongly recommended that only one person at the local educational agency or organization is designated as the person for this agency. And again, that person is Tim Dittburner. How do you vote on this, Karen?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Dennis, yes. Item passes 7-0.
All right, good. Okay, next item is designating a board member as Minnesota State High School League representative. And we did that already with that. Do we need to,
We need a motion?
yeah, do we need a motion on this one? We do. So can I get a motion to designate Mark as the representative for the Minnesota State High School
So
League?
moved.
Second.
Been first and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. All right. So this is also a resolution to designate the clerk and treasurer, so these duties would be handed over to the district office staff people to,
The day-to-day duties of these offices.
and then the actual acting treasurer and clerk technically oversee those duties.
Okay. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to consider the resolution designating clerk and treasurer duties to the district office staff.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Consider the following resolution. Whereas Minnesota statutes empowers the school board to combine the duties of the office of clerk and treasurer of the school board in one person in the office of business affairs of the school district. Whereas the school district has decided to combine the duties of the clerk and the treasurer in one person in the Office of Business Affairs. Therefore, be it resolved that the Director of Business Services of the school district is designated by the School Board of Independent School District 721 to perform the duties of the clerk and treasurer of the district. How do you vote on this, Dan?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Dennis, yes. Item passes 7-0.
All right. Next item on the agenda is to authorize specified, so probably the same people, specified district's office staff to make electronic or paper transactions from any institution that we named for the district through next year. So Do we have this is not a resolution, it's just a normal motion. Do we have a motion to do so?
So moved.
Second.
It's been first and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. All right. Next item up for on here is to authorize the superintendent or the director of business services to execute contracts and purchase orders for goods and services contained within the board-approved budget. Do I have a motion for that?
So move.
Second.
Been first and seconded. Any discussion on this? Hearing none. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. All right. So there's a couple of, I threw these on here. One was suggested just for us, I thought it would be a good time for us to discuss a couple of policies. So the first one I would like to discuss is, it's not really a discussion on this one, but it's really the policy 209. It's board's code of ethics. So the MSBA, as I was sitting through some training, just suggested with new board members coming on, that everybody just familiarize themselves with this policy. I don't think there's anything, in my opinion, that needs to be adjusted on this policy, but really just some items here that you should, I guess, encourage all seven of us just to read through this policy, just to make sure that we are abiding by these codes of ethics as we take on our roles for the next year. So I don't think there's anything that we need to make adjustments. Anybody has any comments or questions regarding this?
I've got a couple questions.
Sure.
And so, in section 2A5, one of the code of ethics is support the decision of the school board, even if my position concerning the issue was different. And I wanted to get a little understanding of what everyone on the board thought the boundaries of that were, of where supporting is and where and what area you have to operate if you still disagree with the decision in the community.
I mean, I'll chime in on what I think. I mean, or someone else wants to speak first. But for me, it's just, I think there's going to be things that we disagree on as a board, no matter what. I mean, or I'm going to see things differently than you, or I might see different things than Denny. But at the end of the day, if a motion carries 6-1 or 5-2, I think we have to get behind whatever policy or whatever thing that we did as a group and just move forward and try to push that and make sure we come with one voice after that. I mean, that's how I read that. Even though, I mean, I might be the person at a minority at a particular time.
So the way you're describing that, for example, if a board member lost a vote and went out into the community to try to rally parent support or something like that, you would consider that a violation of this policy in order to pressure the board to continue evaluating and make a choice that they feel is better.
I mean, I do. I mean, I guess anybody else. So it's not.
No, I agree. I agree with you, Matt. We're sitting up here as a representation of all the people in this district, and if 6 of us vote one way, there shouldn't be someone else running around stirring up things to go a different direction, because the majority voted to go this direction. So, yeah, we all support that direction.
So the way I understand that policy, I thought that might be the way the board would understand it. And so to me, that seems a little bit silly. There's a lot of issues where there's not consensus and where there's a significant portion of the community that disagrees with decisions of the board. And I think it is unfair for a board member to lose their First Amendment rights and their ability to discuss the issues with the community candidly because they lost a vote. And
So we should have the lawyers talk to us about that, because I really don't think that's right.
So you think by being elected to the board, Mark, I've lost my First Amendment rights to talk about education issues after it's been voted on the board?
Personally, yes. Yes.
That's insane.
That's the way things are run in democracies.
So the House of Representatives, when they lose a vote, they can't continue advocating for the position they believe in?
I think
doesn't happen anywhere.
I think if we want to talk about efficiency, if we've looked at a policy, we've discussed the policy, we've looked at it again, we've discussed it again, because we have to have 2 readings for every policy, right?
Yes.
So we've looked at it once, we've created it, we've looked at it again, and we've looked at it the second time, and then we vote on it. To go back and try to do that all over again because 1 or 2 people don't agree with it seems like we would be running in circles all the time. Because there's always going to be somebody who disagrees. And if you disagreed loud enough, you're going to go out in the public and bring them all in, and we're going to have to start all over again with every policy that we don't all agree 7-0 on. So just, I think, efficiency-wise, we wouldn't get anything done if that kept happening.
The board always has the ability to vote on whether or not to take up an issue. The piece that I'm most concerned about is that this board views this policy of ethics as removing our right to continue discussing and encouraging the parents to participate in the issue. And I think that's a really big deal. I think, if I lose a vote, I think the way democracy actually works is the people who actually choose are the people.
You can personally still go out and talk about the way you feel. That's different than going out and say, the board is all really thinking my way, but they voted a different way. You see what I mean?
That's not what this says, though. Like, what you guys told me is that I would have to put a united front on and say I support a policy that I voted against and that I think is wrong.
No,
and
if
for
by,
me,
by voting against it, you've already said that.
Yeah.
You've already made the statement that you're not in favor of
Which is
whatever
fine.
the majority said they were in favor. Now, you have absolutely every right in the world to say that we made a mistake or that you don't agree with it, and you can, look for people to support you or whatever have you. That's fine, but it doesn't mean that we will have to make a change just because some people are disgruntled and upset that that happened. I mean, the board still made their decision, and the final decision for board members is when their time comes for election. If people did not like the way that they voted on some issue or whatever have you, that's the time to finally say, I don't want that person in office and I will vote against them. That's the final way the democracy runs.
so the way you're describing that, Dennis, would I understand the word support in that policy to say that I obviously wouldn't be able to interfere with Mr. Dittburner implementing the policy as he works in the district, but I would not lose any of my First Amendment rights to work with the community, to encourage parents to engage on the issue, to encourage parents to encourage the board to readdress an issue if there's enough support for that.
Absolutely.
So I would be in compliance with this policy if I don't interfere with the implementation inside the district, but everywhere outside as I go on out and about, I'm free to discuss, encourage, and state why I disagreed with the policy and voted against it.
Absolutely.
Is that a fair
That's-
statement?
That's the First Amendment right.
as well.
I'd like some clarity on what you think, Dan, is enough support in the community to re-examine. Does that mean 90% of the community says, you know what, hey, that's wrong, we got to fix it? Or does that mean 10% of the community that you've spoken to says, you know what, we got to fix this because it's not right? That's why I was talking about efficiency before, is that if 10% of the community comes in and has a public forum and speaks during public note time, we're never going to get anything done. Mm-hmm. And so I think we have an obligation to the constituency is not just who voted for us. The constituency that we represent is everybody. It's everybody in the community. And sooner or later, we're just going to have to move forward on certain things. And we're not always going to agree.
And the policies are not something that we just write ourselves. They're Minnesota School Board Association policies.
With advisement from legal counsel.
Right.
And maybe there's a difference between talking about policies and issues. When I talk about policies, it's these individual policies and we get the boilerplate from Minnesota School Boards Association. And it's a very good idea to stick with their verbiage
Recommendation.
because
Recommendations.
other school districts who have deviated have ended up getting sued.
That is true, right? And so if I understand it correctly, I can disagree with policies publicly. I can talk about it in the community, right? But I cannot interfere with the operation of the policies inside the district, and I would be in compliance with this code of ethics.
I would say yes to that.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes. All right.
So,
go ahead.
I've
Yeah,
got another
yeah,
one.
Yeah,
Might as
yeah.
well just jump right in. I assume I'm the only one with questions on this one. So the other one that I'm interested in is there's make no disparaging remarks in or out of school board meetings about other members of the school board or their opinions. And so I wanted to get an idea of what the board thought the guidelines of disparaging and what crosses the line of disparaging.
Really?
Yeah, I'm super interested in where that is.
That's pretty, I think most people understand that.
Let's hear it then.
You don't bring out people's names when you're sitting here talking about things.
And I guess just being, being respectful. Do you need a definition of what it is to be respectful of someone else?
I absolutely believe people think how they interpret respect differs significantly between people. You know, so for example, if somebody says that they disagree with me and they use my name and they explain why they disagree with me, I would not consider that disrespectful.
No.
Right? But Mark would consider it disrespectful if I said, I disagree with this individual and this is why I disagree with them and why I think their position is wrong. And so to me, I think that's an important thing to kind of understand where it is because as we talk about things in the community, and these are important issues in education, you know, if mentioning someone's name is disparaging, right, I think that's similar to the other question we had of defining those boundaries.
Talking about mentioning their name when you're talking here on TV. That's part of the public policy. People that are up here speaking in front of us shouldn't be doing that, like you did once before, but you shouldn't have. So when you're sitting here, you contain yourself and don't use those same things.
So I cannot use, so for example, before you said in the public using somebody's name. And so if we have a public meeting and I use somebody's name, do you consider that disparaging, Mark?
No. No. Disparaging, Mark, to me, means that you're putting them down in a rude,
Right.
disrespectful way. Saying their name, that's not disrespectful, that's a fact. But when you use your own judgment and poor judgment and then put some type of value statement on what kind of person they are or whatever, that's disparaging.
If you put a value statement on their opinion, is that disparaging?
No. No.
Okay.
If you're addressing it to the person that they're stupid and that they're inconsiderate or whatever have you, that is disparaging.
All right, perfect. So if I'm understanding that, Dennis, disparaging, if I said, I think that's a silly opinion or I think that's a silly policy, that would be within bounds. If I said that person is silly, that would be outside of bounds. Per this policy, is that fair?
If you're putting them down for doing it, yeah.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
No,
I
think
disagree.
that's fair.
I disagree. To say something is silly is your opinion of something. If I have an opinion that doesn't match yours, to call my opinion silly is to call me silly. You could say, I think you're wrong, and that's okay. But silly is a valuative word, and I think it's disparaging.
Is wrong a valuative word?
I can be wrong all the time. I don't ever want to be silly.
Okay, that's interesting. All right.
And we're all here to work together. Last time I checked, anyway, but just checking.
I think so. Yeah, that's what I thought.
We don't have to agree, but we can work together and figure out what we need to do.
I think that's absolutely true. You know, one of the things that I think is a problem on the boards oftentimes is we don't discuss honestly a lot of the issues. And I'm trying to figure out what you can and cannot say publicly about the issues per this policy because I intend to talk about all the issues as they come up. And I think it's very important, those two sentences, you know, and the initial starting point on the first one, especially about not being able to talk about your opinion after losing a vote, you know, those were concerning items to me. And trying to control, I think, descriptive statements of how you feel about an opinion, I think that's concerning, right? Even though you can still be cordial, you can still work together and things like that, but I am concerned about any kind of language that stifles the ability to talk about and communicate honestly about issues.
Are you feeling good about what, like, based upon the responses now? Like, are you feeling like you have those addressed, or, I mean, on those items?
I think I have a decent understanding where the board stands.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on this policy?
Are we still on 206?
Or
09.
209, yep.
09, okay.
All right, that's all I had on that. I don't think we need to make, I don't think there's any changes suggested by any means. I just think there was, again, just familiarizing ourselves with that policy.
And again, like Gene said, these are policies that the Minnesota School Boards Association has worked on for many years to make them as equitable and fair.
Are you talking just about 209 right now?
All.
I'm talking about all policies.
Yeah.
All policies.
All
Policies.
This is why we belong to the Minnesota School Boards Association, for direction and for guidance in having proper policies that are legal and benefit the school district.
Okay. The other one, I thought, maybe I shouldn't be thinking anymore. Joking. So the other policy that would be good to bring to the table as well is policy 206. We've had also, obviously, 3 years now to since community members have really been active at coming to board meetings and things like that, I think prior to that, I think most meetings were ignored and not even paid attention to. But so I just thought it'd be a good idea for us as a board to discuss our current procedures and policy on public comment and public participation in meetings.
Open forum.
Open forum portion, yes, thank you. And I thought it'd be good for us to review that and say, do we want to continue doing what we're doing, or is this something we want to look at changing? Quite honestly, I'm just up for suggestions. And I know, Dan, you've been on the other side.
I have a suggestion that we do
Yeah.
not have people come forward and speak while it's being telecast. If they have something to say, they can come to us and talk to us privately ahead of time. But it's turned into a show that they want to get on TV and broadcast ideas and opinions, and we didn't get elected to sit here and to listen to false claims be thrown our way.
Can I just review procedure just for a minute?
Yep.
Open forum says that response to open forum will be from the board chair only. So if someone is sitting there during open forum making comments, then the board chair, which is you, Matt, have the only responsibility and the only right to speak. That's right?
Our current policy,
Right.
yes.
Okay,
Yep.
then it says underneath that, it says the board chairperson may, and then down further, recognize board members who wish to address the board. And so the way it says now is that you are allowed to speak, no one else is. You can recognize a board member to speak to another board member, but not to the public.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think if we keep, I mean, I'm in favor of that, because again, I don't want things to be necessarily contentious with we've seen instances where people have come forward and it causes a reaction. And so I think I would be in favor of keeping that in there, because that way we can keep things to a point where just one person responding, and then from there kind of laying it out and allowing other people to talk and to respond to that. So I guess I would not be in favor of getting rid of that. You have already mentioned that you'd be in favor of getting rid of open forum altogether, Mark?
No, they can
Okay.
still come and speak, but they do it before the meeting, before it's televised, and they speak to. Well, you've talked to other school boards that did this, Tim. Do the superintendent and a couple board members come in ahead of time to listen to these people, or how is it
Yeah,
done?
then they give a report to the boards.
Then they give a report to the board. So they would still
At
have
that
their
same meeting.
opportunity to
Okay.
bring forward whatever they want. It just wouldn't be televised.
Maybe the benefit of that is the rest of the policy says that the board chairperson may directly respond or recognize board members to respond to each other, or offer to respond to the person speaking in writing, create an agenda item for upcoming meetings, or give direction to the superintendent. Maybe if we concentrate on those 5 or 6 things, is that, okay, after someone speaks, something has to happen. And maybe it's just, thank you, maybe that's it. Or maybe it's, I'll respond to you as the school board chair, I'll respond to your comments in writing, we'll create an agenda item, we'll give it to the superintendent. But maybe if we want to do that, we should be following what's going on here. And if there is no response, then we need to say that. We have no response to that. Thank you.
Sure. So something as I read through this procedure, just because I was anticipating this, one thing I thought out, I would just still be in favor of people speaking at the podium during the recording piece. I'm fine with all those things.
Following our guidelines.
It's following our guidelines, but something that I thought we could add was requiring them to initiate this ahead of time. So I know I've read through some board policies where it'd be like by 3 p.m. that day, they need to be on the list to speak. Because part of that is, my hope is, if someone has a concern they want to bring to the district, I would love for them to have that concern brought to superintendent or a principal or someone who can actually answer that question ahead of time. So my hope would be, hey, you bring that you have to call by, or you have to be on the list by 3 o'clock that day, or 12 o'clock, or whatever the time would be. And then they'd have an opportunity then to hey, this person has a concern with X, Y, Z. And Tim, I'm nominating you, Tim, to hopefully address that concern, so we can actually get to the root of the problem. Because
They have to provide some of the content that they're going to discuss, though, because some of these, I'm all for the people that have legitimate things to talk about and come up to us, but there's been a lot of times when people have just come and thrown outright lies at us and they have talked to no board members, no administrators, no nobody. They just come here and spiel for 5 minutes, and that's not fair to anybody.
Well, and
That's not what we're here for.
I think it's hard to respond. Maybe I'm not speaking for you, but as the chair, if you're the one that has to respond, you don't know what the topic is until they're sitting there for that 5 minutes.
Which is why also I thought
Don't wanna
if it could be on the
reactively
agenda, because then I
respond.
could at least have, you know, three,
Yes.
4 hours ahead of time to be
To
like,
look at what-
hey, like this person has a concern about this, and then
Yeah.
I could at least get on the phone and call Tim or call principal or if there's an issue. Because I think the goal of open forum is to bring concern to the board that we can hopefully address and then disseminate that out to the people that can answer that question.
Right.
Because
Well,
for
and the
most of us, we don't have the answer. I mean, it's someone
Oh,
within the
and
school
hopefully
district.
it comes with less anger, because it seems like a lot of it comes with a tremendous amount of anger about people that have spoken about things incorrectly or bad information's been given to them. So there really has been no communication yet. The first communication, too many times, is them sitting there angry, and a lot of times we don't even really understand what they're angry about, because we have no idea what communication took place or anything.
I think having a timeline of before the meeting, it gets taken care of as far as what they plan on talking about and having it go through the process with the superintendent, I think would be a great idea. I've always looked at open forums as being kind of an informational thing to me. And what are the concerns, what are the feelings of people about certain topics. I really hated the times when people would just comment and regurgitate the same comment that was made by somebody else, just in different words. And that's repetitious, and it isn't really telling us anything new. It's just being a repetition of what somebody else said. And I think that system of yours would work well, because once it's said, it's said. It doesn't have to be said by another person, because it's already been covered, and the information that they wanted to give has been given, and we've got it.
And our current policy does allow us to do that currently. So it says that based upon time, you can consolidate, you know, if there's 15 people that want to say the same thing,
Right.
our procedures already allow for me to, or the board chair at that time, to consolidate those down.
And by having it be
So-
addressed before the meeting, actually,
Right.
with the
And again, I think the
superintendent.
idea is that the open forum is there to hopefully get answers and to address issues. I mean, that is the whole
Right.
purpose of it.
I'm
And
trying
So
to-
it's to
trying to
give
get to it.
information.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the purpose is, we don't act on it because we just got that information. So we had no time whatsoever
Hmm.
to even address what that was being talked about, you know. So I think it's an informational thing, and we can use it that way, but I think it has to be in parameters that make it usable,
Yeah.
not just
Agreed.
be a show.
I like the
we-
idea of contacting the superintendent ahead of time and giving information about it, but if we're going to consolidate 15 of the same voices into one, 3 o'clock that afternoon is not gonna work, because those people need to get together and figure out, okay, you're gonna be our spokesperson, this is what I wanna make sure. So we would have to give that group of people enough time to consider, I guess, what they need,
Yeah.
or who they need
So what
to
would be
speak.
an appropriate time, go ahead.
Can I weigh on a couple
Yeah.
things? And there's a couple pieces of the open forum that I think causes the most frustration as a frequent user. So a couple pieces is one, I think even when people are talking on the same topic, the different voices in the community still give different perspectives and different ways that people are looking at it that sometimes are pretty subtle, but I think it's important to let everybody who wants to speak. One of the ways that you can control for time is here we say we can reduce the amount of time we give to public forum if there's a ton of people. And I think it's a mistake to try to do that when there's a high level of interest. And so I think if we allocate maybe 20 minutes for public forum as a max, and then you would be able to divide the number of people who want to speak by that, which would predetermine, and encourage groups to consolidate their speakers and things like that. But it wouldn't tell somebody you can't speak on this issue because somebody else is.
Sure.
Because while people have similar opinions, it's still different, and people feel strongly about talking to their elected representatives directly.
Okay.
And then I think another problem is we have trouble communicating with each other in public forum because the entire forum is designed to prevent any live communication. And so, for example, for board members, when somebody says something, I think it'd be very useful to be able to ask them a follow-up question to say, did you mean this, or how do you understand that? And I think that could eliminate some of the misunderstandings we have. You know, me and Mark had one on my first public forum. I think me and Mark had a significant disagreement. And after we spent the day on LinkedIn, it turns out that what I thought I said, right, Mark would not have been unhappy with it. And a follow-up question possibly could have given an opportunity to resolve that right away, right? And so I think those are a couple important principles that can allow us to have more understanding in the time we spend to it, because if we don't allow any questions and we kick the answer out, and I feel like when I try to get answers on the things I've talked about, I get bounced around in the district where I really can't actually discuss the issue. And so that would be my concerns with how we're running public policy or public comment.
You never talked to one school board member before you came here the first time, though, Dan.
Why do I need to?
You said you wanted to get information. If you don't talk to any of us before you come here, how much effort have you put in to getting information?
So it's a communication policy. It's a communication procedure.
We're all on the website with a phone number.
So I came on my first meeting to say that I thought curriculum being added was wrong. I don't need to talk to the board members about that. I want to say that the curriculum that was added was wrong and I did not like it. And so I don't think that requires pre-communication. I think that's something that we can do right at that time. And so to me,
Did you speak to the teacher who created that curriculum? Did you speak to the department head who has that teacher? Did you speak to the principal who is the supervisor of that? Did you speak to the superintendent? Did you do any of those steps before coming to the board and dropping it at their feet, unknown to them?
So-
I can see what Mark is saying, is that if we don't, or Matt said too, if we don't know what's coming, it's going to be very hard for us to even understand.
Which is exactly why I don't want it to happen.
Did any of you guys not know about the curriculum emails that were going around when that first meeting happened?
I did not.
Oh, you were not on the board. Sorry
Thank
about that. Yeah, right. But it had been communicated about pretty widely. It's my understanding.
Well,
inside the
and
district.
you misinterpreted it. You totally. So, I mean, that's where I started this whole talk about saying, I don't want people to come here and just throw things at us. That's what you did.
But you know what I did do that you guys were probably also all aware of? I did a Freedom of Information request on the topic.
Well, yeah, but that just causes a lot of work for not just making a simple phone call and learning a few things on the phone, Dan. That's what I'm trying to prevent.
I have talked until I'm blue in the face to members of this board about different issues that I'm interested in, and I generally get generic answers that never talk about specifics. Like on the curriculum issue, I was interested in why the policy was interpreted in such a way that we thought that was acceptable to implement, right? And that is 100% board duty. And so
No, you didn't even talk to the principal
Guys,
that
like,
explained it
let's
very
let-
well.
Okay, let me stop. I think we're getting off topic a little bit, because I think we're getting down the path of what a particular situation that occurred. So I think I kind of reel this back in a little bit, because I think what we're all saying is, I think you're saying is that we want to get to a point where we know, like, we want the people to be not just spewing out stuff that they maybe could have addressed with people within the district, right? And do a little homework before you actually come to the board table, because honestly, this should be like the last resort, really, right? I think that's how I feel.
Exactly.
A lot of it is, and I think that's what you're saying. I think you have valid points in the sense that I think you're saying, like, you were frustrated with different things, which I totally get. But at the same time, I think what we're trying to look at here is our policy on open forum for the time being. So what I've heard so far is you would be okay with saying, let's maximize the amount of time that we have. Like, let's set a max, like 30 minutes or 20 minutes devoted towards that, so it doesn't turn into an hour and a half of open forum.
Absolutely.
So, okay. And then I suggested that we have like people have to submit in writing or on a call or somehow ahead of time. If they want to speak at open forum, they'd have to notify the district ahead of time. By a certain period of time. I would suggest 2 o'clock, 12 o'clock, sometime before that day, 3 o'clock, whatever it is, so we can at least get it on the agenda, so we can all at least be aware of that, hey, there's going to be 4 speakers talking about this topic. And then we can at least talk, not amongst each other, but like with people within the district and say, hey, this is the issue, let's get on top of this, let's help this person out get answers. So,
Could the timing be 24 hours before board?
Can I just?
Yeah, go ahead.
There's a lot of districts have a time limit. I mean, a max time limit of 20 minutes or 30 minutes. Many of them have a deadline the day before or the day of by noon or whatever. My suggestion is to give the Policy Review Committee some samples to
Okay.
look at, decide, make a recommendation for the first reading, and, I mean, we're not changing this tonight, folks.
No.
No.
So
Yeah.
I think you're on the right track, but I think we can find some that are done that would be acceptable to the.
So I guess
members
we
of the
would
board.
give direction to the policy committee that we would like this reviewed, and that, you know, whether there's a time limit in aggregate, in total, and then some type of headway of, some proposal,
And
yeah.
I really don't care
Yeah.
which, but I could give you 5 districts that have different
have these
ones
in them.
that
That we can
Dan's
use.
talking about, the time limit. or-
And they have to get some substantial content of what they're
Yeah,
gonna talk about.
we can just take a, let
We can have a
the,
list of the items that they
let the
want to talk about.
policy review committee
Okay.
look at it and then make a recommendation that, for a first reading.
Thank you, Tim.
All right.
Any other discussion on that? Hopefully,
And also
Yeah.
limit the number of people that can talk about the same topic. I think that's very important too, because repetition for just repetition's sake makes no sense.
okay.
Let's just see what, whatever. Let's
Yes.
just see what we find from districts that do it.
Okay. All right. That was fun. All right, the consent agenda, and just before we vote on that, so the consent agenda usually has a bunch of items in there that are non-controversial in nature, and if anybody wants to peel that out, something out of the consent agenda, let me know or let Tim know, so, because we work on the agenda we coordinate together to get the agenda done every Monday or every meeting, so if there's something in there, you can take it out. Otherwise, it's just a fell swoop motion. So do I get a motion to?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
First and seconded, any discussion? Oh, that's no discussion, but those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. All right, superintendent's report.
Okay. Well, I can guarantee you right now there won't be any more snow days the rest of this year. No, people were able to get a full two-week holiday, or the kids did at least, or parents, but I know a lot of parents were ready for their kids to go back to school, but it's been crazy. The amount of, we've already got 3 days. 2 of them were flexible learning days, but we'll see what the future. It reminds me of my first year as superintendent. That was 2013-14. We had extreme cold. We had snow late into the spring. We had a lot of days. I think we even had to do a staff development day on Good Friday that year, if I remember correctly. So trying to get all the hours in, but it's been sort of crazy. We've got the Minnesota School Board Association Conference. I know Dan and Karen, you guys are signed up for training. It starts Wednesday, and the conference, all the sessions on Thursday or Friday. A lot of you are going, so looking forward to that. And then I think we'll talk a little bit about this in our budget adjustment here, but we got the legislative session that has started, and it's going to be an interesting next couple months and what happens there, but that will have a great influence on the direction we go with our district, or every district in the Minnesota. So those are the main things, and a lot of things going on throughout the district, especially activities going on right now, and making up some concerts that got canceled too. So that's where we're at. That's all I got.
Question. So with blended learning days, we no longer have to add days if we have like 15 snow days. Is that correct, or correct me if I'm wrong?
Well, technically, you get 5 blended learning days,
Okay.
and
So if it
there's
goes
a
beyond
minimum
that-
amount of hours, but we're can't remember the amount of hours. We've got a cushion,
Okay.
trust me, on it. And if it gets to that, I'll let you know.
Okay.
I'll keep you informed, but yeah, we'll see what happens.
With blended learning days, we still get state funds for those.
They get counted as a student contact
As
day.
contact days.
Okay.
And I'll just tell you a little thing here. Was it the second or third one? I can't even remember right now. Blended Learning Day. I go down to the fitness center like at 1 o'clock, and I see the receptionist, and I go, "How's it going here?" "Oh, it's really dead." And I go, "God, no one's around." Well, I forgot. It was the second day. That's what it was. Because the first one's, there was no kids in the place all day. So that was a good thing. They're actually, most of them are at home, especially secondary on their blended learning. So
All right, thanks,
Matt, I
Tim.
did have a CPAC meeting that I could give a report on. this past week.
I think we'll save it for the regular meeting at next
It's a
in
short
2
one.
weeks.
It's a short
So,
one.
we'll save it. We'll save
Okay.
it. Let's move into the superintendent recruitment proposals. So we have 5 of them. Sandy, do you want to speak on any of these? I know we've been sent ahead of time, and we've had chance to review them, and now we just have to discuss what we want to do. So.
Right, yeah, I don't think I need to make any more comments. They're all posted in the public section of board docs. I think tonight you have 2 options. One is you certainly could select a vendor to do it, or you could narrow it down and have them come in and give presentations, and then, select it at a later date.
Sure. Okay. Anybody have any?
I think we should select it.
Okay.
I'm ready to pick it.
Really, I'm curious. Who are you thinking?
One that picked him.
So
It's the most affordable, and they do a good job.
who was on the board at that time? I'm curious because that's the
South Central.
South Central, and that one's free. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It's a service to the members.
Okay. Okay, and we're a member. So who was on the board at that time, and who could speak to that experience a little bit? Just because, again, I was not on the board at that time, and I would like to hear how that worked and how it all played out.
Well, I was, and they had like a couple of retired superintendents that kind of, facilitated the whole thing, and they were very good at explaining the process. And
They did a good job of leading us through the process. They also did a forum for the public, for the staff members to discuss, the candidates that we were looking at, and they did a nice, thorough job. I thought it was very good, very good.
Okay. I know, Sandy, last year there was how many superintendent searches what was the numbers on that? Like,
Yeah,
who picked who? I'm curious.
Right, yeah, from what I can recall, I don't have my notes with me, but on this particular thing, I think South Central Service Cooperative, I don't think they did any, because there weren't any in the region, but they did do some, help one district, they selected internal candidate and helped that candidate be successful. MSBA certainly does most of the searches in the state. School Exec Connect does a few as well. And the other consulting firms that are in there have, they're kind of new.
Yeah.
And have done, minimal searches.
So SCSC, they only cover what area then?
Yeah, so it's that, Mankato, New Ulm, New Prague, Jordan, Belle Plaine, that area.
Faribault,
South
Northfield.
Central.
Okay.
Jordan
Right.
used them last time when they searched.
Did they?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They did use them.
Yeah,
Yeah, because when I looked through these, I really liked MSBA's obviously structured approach. Huge, they have huge respect across the district. SCSC obviously, looks like a good option. Even like the independent ones, I could something we could use them and try to adapt the process if we want to. So I was open to any of these 5. So, yeah.
And so, do I understand correctly that SCSC, you don't have visibility of the filtering process of the candidates, so you can't see the candidate pool you started with and see the results of their filtering criteria to see who's getting kicked out and who's not? Is that a true statement?
Yeah, and that's true with every firm except MSBA. MSBA is the only vendor that gives access to all the board members, all the applicants with names and everything. They are expected then to treat that as confidential information. They are the only firm that does that. And the other firms, basically you create a superintendent profile based on input from the board and the community and staff, and then they will screen candidates based on that criteria and present qualified applicants to the board without the names being shown. And then the board discusses the candidates and selects those for interviews. Obviously, if there aren't any qualified applicants and the board doesn't want to interview any of them, then they have to go back to the beginning and try again. I don't see that happening in this case, but it could. Yeah, so, and the reason for the confidentiality really is a superintendent or person, a current superintendent might not want to have their name public
Right.
unless they're a serious candidate, unless they're a semifinalist for the position.
And so, would the SCSC, would they be willing to, because I like not having the personal identifiable information, but whenever I'm using a filtering service, I always like to get an idea of what types of things get filtered out and not. And so without the identifiable information, they would not let us see our total applicant pool and see what types of people they were eliminating and who they were keeping in for semifinalists. Is that a true statement, or is that something we could request?
I think
Because
that's
I would feel
something-
very comfortable with them if I could see how they filter.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can request that. Again, you could never, not see names, but I don't see a problem necessarily. They could give you a general idea too of who they filtered out. They have two kind of approaches. This is when we hired Tim. You have current superintendents and you have emerging leaders. And emerging leaders may not be, you may want someone with superintendent experience and no emergent leaders. So, based on what the board is feeling, they might screen out emerging leaders if you really want someone who's done the job and so forth. So that's one example. Or if you have a focus in curriculum or something, they would, look for that in the candidate pool.
And we give them parameters as well.
Yes.
What we're looking for in the person.
The
And
profile.
That's
we-
the
we
profile.
developed.
Yep.
So that's kind of the filter, right?
Exactly,
Yep.
exactly. And then that kind of, filters for them because they know what we're expecting, what we're looking for.
Yeah, and one concern I have, so for example, when I'm hiring at work, I always check the full stack of resumes, because when I describe my filtering process to HR, the communication's never perfect, right? And so I like the ability to be able to see what's in the rejected pile and what's in the forward pile, and that helps us evaluate whether or not we think they're applying our criteria the way we communicated it to them.
Sure.
Because otherwise, if you don't get to see that, it's just blind faith, and at the end of the day, we don't know. We've never used any of these services in a recent period of time and things like that. And so, to me, I'm a big fan of being able to evaluate a little bit of what types of things are filtered in comparison to what we might want to look at.
Sure. So do we want to move forward with this, or do we want to say, do we want them to propose, come to us and talk to us, and so we can ask those questions and address those, or what are you guys thinking?
I also talked to an administrator over in St. Peter because they just did a search a couple of years ago and they used MSBA. She was okay with them. She said, actually what she told me was, we probably didn't use MSBA because I know we wouldn't have paid that much. And I said, well, I think you did use MSBA and you did pay that much. And she went, oh, well, then I'm not all that enthused about them. The thing that she gave me was that she got the impression that they had pinholed one of their candidates and kind of pushed them towards that from the very beginning and didn't let them step back and look at a number of different candidates. All of the candidates that they offered were objectively offered, but she felt like she was being driven in a certain
Or didn't have
direction.
the
Yeah.
real direction.
I also contacted the Rising Tide School Board Services. There were two different emails on the bottom of their marketing brochure to say, hey, contact these people. We've done the work for them. One of them I emailed and I didn't get anything back, which I thought was kind of strange. Why would you put that on your marketing information if they weren't going to communicate with me? And the other one, the email didn't work. So that link is not correct, which seems kind of odd for me too. So I would vote Rising Tide to go away just because they don't seem
You couldn't
attention
even,
to
you couldn't even
details.
reach them?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think, the main difference between MSBA and South Central Service Cooperative, South Central Service Cooperative, it's a very hands-on approach. They have a survey that they send, or a Google form, or I'm not sure what, if it's a Survey Monkey or whatever, but to get broad feedback, but they also do some focus groups. They also have different interviewing committees, staff, public, so forth. MSBA basically does it all online to create the profile. They will come, but it's an extra fee. And they do not recommend using committees to interview, but to have evaluation forums in the audience, and the board is the only one that interviews. Those are some of the key differences in my mind. And then MSBA provides all the data.
Do you think the net will be cast as wide with SCSC? Like as, I mean, obviously there's technology super simple. You can post a job opening
yeah.
anywhere.
That won't matter.
It won't matter?
No,
Okay.
unless you want to go national here, but
Right, okay.
that won't matter. MSBA right now, they just sent an email. They got 8 superintendent postings right now that they're working on, so.
Okay. Sure.
Hence, that's why I want to get going and get ours
Yeah,
listed.
right.
Well, that's why I
Yeah.
tired when I did too.
Yeah, and Southwood Service Cooperative has other things in the barrel too, so I would like to get going as soon as possible.
Yeah. No,
for
I think
that.
time is of an essence here for sure. So, are we fine with moving ahead then with SCSC?
I'm good with it if they'll let us get a peek, especially with what Karen said. I think that gives us a good reason to want to peek in at how the filtering process works, and if they'll do that, it's a no-brainer for me.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm fine
I
with
can
them.
check with them, and I think that, you know, at the very least, they put together a summary of, you know, why they didn't select certain candidates. I'm not sure they'd, you know, let all the application materials out, but they would at least provide some information. But I will verify that.
Or reasonings why they filtered out
Right.
people, certain people. So, okay. So, do we need to take any action today? Yes. Do we need to make a motion to move ahead with one, or?
Yeah, I would,
Okay.
pending the answer to that question, I think. I could have that question answered probably even yet this evening.
So how would we want this motion worded then? That we are moving ahead pending that?
Go forward with the hiring of SCS to do the
So that they can,
Tenant search.
yeah, so,
superintendent.
Yeah, with
any
the
pen-
clarification that I will receive from them this evening or tomorrow morning.
and on your timeline, you have them being here on the 23rd to talk? Or is that different?
That was their timeline, so yeah, they are ready to get
Timeline?
going right away.
Okay.
I'll
All
make
right.
that- I'll make that as a motion.
You make that a motion?
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion on the matter?
This doesn't negate the idea that if we don't find someone through South Central, that we can't then go back to the school board association.
Well,
Correct.
no, we,
Okay.
I mean,
This is our first
if
step.
we don't
First
come
shot.
up with a good person,
Okay.
we can say forget it and go start again.
Okay. Any other discussions? Any other questions? No? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. All right, budget adjustment amount and process recommendation by Sandy.
And Tim.
Get used to this, Tim. This is
You
gonna be
lame
fun.
duck.
I know, I feel it already.
No. Tim's starting it. Tim is definitely starting it. I'll do the slides until my part comes up.
All right. Okay, our end of year projections here, our unassigned fund balance, we have a board goal of 8%, and Sandy's projecting it right now, it'll be between 6.5% and 7.5%, so underneath that 8%. Just a reminder where we're at with the fund balance history, and this is a slide that came from my referendum presentation, and as you can see, going below that 8% goal, you can see how rapidly it's gone down since 1920 of COVID. Enrollment projections is from Sandy, and she could comment a little bit more, but you can see in red there where we're at with 22-23, being at 4,098, pretty flat for next year, but you can see it decreasing like she's given a presentation before. A lot of it's with the birth rate in the 3 counties going down as being a big factor too.
Right, and these are the enrollment projections that you approved that were approved by the board in November.
Okay. Here we go by grade level, so this is elementary, and you can see the big drop, and we really took a hit, like I said, with COVID, the COVID year here when we weren't going every day. Moving up a little bit, coming down. This year we're at 1744, and you can see the projections the next 2 years, which are very conservative, but that's the way we want to do them. What's interesting on this is if you compare it to, again, my first year as superintendent, 13-14, basically our enrollment right now is the same as it was 10 years ago at the elementary level. Middle school enrollment, been a little bit up and down. It went down this year by 30 students. You can see it's at 949. We have a big 5th grade, so it will be going up next year, and then projecting to be going down. And
And this is indicative of, you know, you have these typically in the past, we've had high kindergarten, low kindergarten, high, low, high,
It
low.
just-
It's just been a pattern, and this is showing it, moving it through the middle school.
And then the high school, as you can see, is steadily increase, being at its highest point right now, and pretty, maybe just up a little bit next year, we'll see, and going down slightly the following year.
Want to talk about the demographic study as well?
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, so as part of the strategic plan, we talked about doing a demographic study for the district and enrollment. Last time we had it done is Tim's first year in 2013. And so right now I am looking at various vendors that do that and, trying to select someone to do that demographic study. These enrollment projections are really based on past enrollment, but a demographer will look at housing patterns and people moving in and out and birth rates, which I do. And so the age of the population within our district, they look at all these different factors, and then they will project enrollment ahead 10 years. So while, I feel good about ours, but a lot is changing. And that demographer will be able to give us a better handle on that. But that will take several months to complete.
Would I be right to say that not as many secondary students are leaving our district to do post-secondary options at full-time at other schools? Has that flattened out, or?
We do definitely lose some full-time PSEO. A few years back, Normandale, because we lose a lot of PSEO to Normandale. So what we did with them, because the state kind of got to keep some of that money, so we report them as students, and then Normandale bills us for those. And so that way, the state doesn't keep part of that money. So they're counted as a full-time student. We just pay that invoice to them. But I think it's been pretty steady. When we added the MARS program, that helped.
Yeah, the
a
MARS
lot.
program, the healthcare program with Mayo, the college and the schools that we offer through the University of Minnesota and some of the other colleges are keeping kids in the building. That's what you got to be very careful of, is if you don't make a commitment for classes that are strong, or I could even take our vocational classes are keeping a lot of our kids too. We have a very strong vocational program. You got to have a strong curriculum and strong opportunities for kids at the high school. Otherwise, you will lose them to PSEO, and would be a greater
We're doing a
thing.
pretty good job of.
I think, yeah, we have not had a really big drop, and kids are staying in the programs, which is positive. But
Great.
Normandale is definitely our biggest. The most students go to the Normandale programs. So you can graduate with a 2-year degree, pretty much, if you do that, full time. Okay, so now just to get some of the financial pieces. So when we were doing levy presentations, we noted that if both levies didn't pass, we would make a $4 million budget cut. I said that was dependent on a lot of things. And so this just summarizes some of the main changes in August versus today. One is that compensatory revenue increase, so we can direct certify free and reduced lunches based on medical assistance eligibility. And so our free and reduced count went from 10% to 20% from last year to this year. That obviously increases our compensatory revenue. So that increased about $430,000. And then, of course, back in August, I was using projected actuals and the budget that we approved in June, which always is preliminary because we don't have finals and we don't know who our staff is going to be. So I was using that preliminary budget. Now I can use the revised budget. So as I mentioned in December when I gave the budget presentation, the expenses came in lower and there was a slight increase in revenue. So, there's a lot of other things that go into these financial projections, but that's what I can, basically some broad categories I can talk about that have changed. So when I do financial projections, I have a base plan, and for the base plan I used for revenue, I did the decreasing enrollment per the November projections. That is always partially offset by declining enrollment revenue. It doesn't by any means keep us whole, but it gives just a little bit of a cushion as you decline. Gen Ed formula, I didn't change that. I went 4%, and then the third year I went 2%. Just to give you a reference, every 1% on the gen ed formula is about 300,000. That's kind of something you can kind of keep in your head. And the state funding will not be known until March at the earliest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and we may get more, but I don't think it's likely we'll get less. Right now, the bills that have been proposed, there's actually some funding for this year yet. Most of them are for next year. Special ed cross-subsidy aid is a big deal, and then the gen ed revenue, free meals, which doesn't affect the general fund. We could potentially know earlier too, but we just don't know their timeline. I have a one-time increase to the compensatory revenue. This was a pilot program that MDE did, or the state of Minnesota did. I don't know if that will be repeated, so I thought to be on the safe side, I need to lower it back down to normal. I have in here that we'll renew the operating levy in November, not increase it, just renew it. That we'd come in 0.5% over the revenue budget for the 3 years that I looked at. We do have the 700,000 decrease in federal COVID grants in 23-24. That I've been, talking with you all along about that. That is our cliff. Many districts that cliff will come the following year, and it'll be millions of dollars. So that is a fortunate thing for us, is that we hit that cliff a little bit earlier and it's not so large. Obviously, we'll have increasing interest revenue as interest rates rise. And then I used about a 2.5% increase in the local revenue categories. That's not the majority of our revenue, but that's just what I used. For expenses, I used, pretty moderate salary and benefit increases for 2 years, and then more typical the third year. I have a 4% increase in purchase services. Utilities is a big one. Contracted staff, purchase services. As employees' salaries go up, so do contracted services go up. Used a 2% increase for supplies and materials and 2% for equipment, except I did add a bus purchase. We delayed this year's bus purchase, but I did put in one from the unassigned general fund in 23-24, and that's about $95,000. So I looked really at 3 scenarios. I've settled on number 3. I'll talk about number 3 first, I think. But so for the revenue assumption, I assumed that we would finish the year 0.5% above our budget, about $220,000. Just to give you an idea, right now our enrollment is about 14 pupil units above what I projected, and that's about 100,000. So kind of give you an idea there. Expense assumption, we come in under 0.75. About 364,000, and then our year-end unassigned fund balance would be 9.3% or 3.4 million, 7.3% or 3.4 million. You see the other 2, I kind of went high, low, and then medium. The 23-24, if we didn't make any adjustments, scenario 3, we'd end the year at about 1.8% fund balance, or about $850,000. And the adjustment needed to meet the 8% goal is 3.1 million, which is about $1 million less than I talked about in August, which matches the changes I've seen since I did those projections. So we're recommending number 3. I think it's a reasonably conservative approach. We're always conservative. Being too conservative isn't good. But you better be safe than sorry. It should prevent further fund balance decline. It could get us a little further ahead. And as you see on the next slide, that is not a bad thing. If results are better, a cushion will be created because with the 3.1 million adjustments in 23-24, 24-25, without any changes, we'd be $3.5 million short of our 8% goal. And in, I see a typo, 25-26. We'd be 8.5 million short of our 8% goal, because it does, pick up steam as it rolls downhill. But decisions will be made every year based on enrollment, funding, and expense trends. Just to give you an idea, just a high level, revenue increase by year. So this is just comparing prior year to the new year. Revenue increases 1.6% in 23-24. That is seemingly low. I put 4% on the formula, but we're losing that $700,000 in federal funding. 24-25 is 1.4%. Again, that seems a little low compared to the 4%. However, I brought that compensatory revenue down, as well as our enrollment is decreasing. And 25-26 is more in line with that 2% revenue, again, declining enrollment. Expense increases next year, 4%. That includes that bus, which is a pretty big deal. 24-25, 2.6, and 25-26. 24-25, 2.6, and 25-26, 2.8. So that kind of gives you a high-level look at where I'm at. So again, we're recommending that reasonably conservative approach, that 3.1 million. And then Tim?
Yeah, and just process and timeline. Sandy and I will start giving this presentation to staff beginning Wednesday is our first one. So we visit all the schools, including the CAC here too, with early childhood. We'll get input, solicit input from staff through a Google form or individual meetings. I'll talk about that with all of them. Late January, early February, I've got meetings scheduled with all the directors and principals to get their input on the budget adjustments. And then February, March, reviewing input from staff, present the budget adjustment recommendations. And between then and April 24th, too, we'll get input from just anyone, communities, parents, whatever. We'll don't have it on there right now, but a Google form thing similar to what we did with staff. And then April 24th, hopefully we have a pretty good idea at the state level where they're at, but we'll present the final budget adjustments for approval. So it's a little difficult, but I'm picking on this timeline here because you never know with the state, but that's, I think, for right now, I think that's going to be our timeline right now. Sandy, anything to add on that?
No, I don't think so. So any questions or comments at all?
The 3.1 million, what percentage of total budget is that?
That's about, let's see, our budget is about 45 million, so probably 7 to 8%, something like that.
All right. Do we need any, you just are updating on this. We don't need to make any action items or?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, yeah, I don't think so.
This
it's
is
as long as you're
this
okay
is
with-
informational.
Yeah,
But
the
keep
3
in-
point.
I mean, this is not, I mean, I'm giving this, and this is what we're presenting, but
Up to- yeah.
it can change too.
Yeah.
Just, this is a work in progress in a way.
Right.
Basically letting us know that this is happening.
This
and
is
that
happening.
We need to start making some adjustments.
We gotta get to 3.1.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I
you,
think that's
Sandy.
everything on the agenda today. That was easy, guys. So can I get a motion to adjourn the regular meeting and go to work
Wait,
session?
there's one.
So moved.
Oh,
Second.
who's gonna do the words?
It's been first and seconded. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
They'll have more work though.
Yeah, then now we have work session.